This week on Board Game Faith, Religion, and Board Game Design with Shem Phillips of Garphill Games. This is Board Game Faith, the bi-weekly podcast on the intersection of religion, spirituality, and board games. Anyway, hello and welcome. My name is Kevin.
My name's Daniel.
I guess I'm Shem Phillips.
We
Welcome,
are talking
Shem.
in 3 time zones and 2 continents. Pretty amazing. Yes. Welcome and thank you for making a little time for us. Yeah. And we wanted to chat a bit about your journey, both as your religious journey and your board game design journey, and especially inspiring your link from your testimonial at church maybe about a year ago or so.
Yeah.
So we will link that and the links below. But I thought one question to start with, you like to do trilogies, which is kind of odd in board game design. That's kind of fair?
Yeah, I'm okay to be called odd. That's fine.
Well, I don't mean it in a bad way. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting thing, and what I've found playing them, it almost feels like an iteration, like you're playing with a design bit, and then you change to a different location and a different interest. Is that fair, or is there any thought there, or why trilogies?
Yeah, I kind of stumbled into it with shipwrights, and then people were asking for is there another game coming about raiding with these ships? And that led me to the trilogy kind of model. And then with the West and the South, we were far more intentional. So it is very much like with architects, we discovered this virtue, corruption kind of mechanical theme, I guess you could say, in the game. And we thought we could explore this more with future games. So we had the corruption and the debts that came into Paladins, and then even the deeds and the good stuff that came with Viscounts. So it allows us to kind of play in that similar mechanical space, but still design a fresh game. So it's fun for us because we can kind of enjoy that game, I guess that world a bit more longer than just here's a one-off game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Do you find that you might have like a mechanism that you'd want to try in a game, but you think, oh, well, we're going to have another game, so we can push that off to the next one or something like that?
Yeah, it's totally how it could work. I'm not sure if there's an example of that, but I think with the virtue kind of stuff, especially there's probably things we thought, oh, that doesn't quite work, and then maybe later down the line, actually, that idea we had a while ago could work for this one. That happens in all our games anyway. We've got there's one mechanism we have, which we tried it in Paladins, we tried it in Viscounts, we tried it in Wayfarers. We haven't even used it yet, but we've got this idea of this kind of training your workers type mechanism that one day it'll make it into a game, but not yet. So
it hasn't made the final cut in any of the games.
No.
Okay.
One day.
Yeah.
It's almost like a book, right? Like you have different little bits that didn't work, and then you save it for the next one, right? And even the expansions are a bit of an iteration, like playing with some of the ideas. So that's
expansions are fun. They're more of a service to the fans than they like us trying to make something new. But it is fun to go back a year or two later and revisit a design and think, how would we make this better now with all this, all the additional plays we've had and the fun we've had with the game since.
In your testimonial, you discussed the power of music and lyrics. So I don't know if you'd want to say a bit more about, what's the role of music and lyrics in your life today? Yeah,
I'm a big music fan. I grew up I taught myself to play bass. I played drums as a kid, but I can't play now. So I learned guitar and bass, and then got into bands. Lots of rock and punk and metal kind of bands, hardcore bands growing up. And I always loved lyrics, especially from a faith point of view. I love the heavier Christian metal bands, Strong Arm and Zayo and stuff from back in the Tooth and Nail Solid State days. And just the power that was in those lyrics, the emotion and the truth behind them. I always clung to those. So even now, still, I just love listening to songs that have real powerful lyrics. I still like music just for music as well. There's some bands I listen to that have terrible lyrics, but when there's really good lyrics, it just makes the song that much better. So I've always gravitated towards any kind of poetic writing that has that gets the emotions going, gets the feeling going. I don't know. I always enjoyed it. It's another creative endeavor like board game design, I guess. Similar kind of thing.
Yeah, because you write music as well too, right?
Not so much these days, but yeah, I still enjoy writing when I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask in this testimonial that we're talking about, this wonderful sermon that's online that you give at your church. Yeah, you talk about you describe yourself as a lyric nerd, or a nerd, a lyric nerd. Nerd lyric is something else. And I love that, because that's something we talk about in our family sometimes too. That just give me a good lyric, and it can cover up, it can make up for a lot of other things in the song. But you mentioned a few, but I was wondering, are there some artists or bands that are kind of the pinnacle of good lyric writing for you, that you especially admire
definitely.
their abilities to turn some good lyrics?
Yeah, so in the Christian music space, My Epic are one of the best bands. That their lyrics are amazing. My Epic, they're kind of like a alternative rock kind of style band.
Yeah.
Very biblical. You feel like you're listening to scripture, basically.
Wow.
Strong Arm is one of my favorite old-time Christian hardcore bands. Their lyrics is bonkers, so good. And then for more creative stuff, the band Me Without You I really love. He quotes a lot of different stuff, not always Christian, but various like authors and other kind of books he quotes, but really deep, and almost too deep to the point you're like, what is he actually saying in this bit? But I love the way he crafts the melodies with the kind of the timing of the words, that kind of stuff, the phonetics of the words. Yeah.
And what was the name of the last one? I'm sorry.
Me Without You. It's all one word. Me Without You.
Me Without You.
Thank you.
What do you think makes something Christian besides quoting scripture or certain phrases? What do you think would make something authentically Christian?
Yeah, I don't know if things can be Christian. I think people can be Christian, but I think it's more the intent behind the artwork, I guess, is probably what makes it classed as a Christian thing. If it's a person of faith who's trying to, I guess, give a message of some sort, or at least some truth or some hope, then I guess it has that front to it. But it can be, there's songs out there that don't even have anything biblical in them, or any kind of, I guess, direct wordage used, but it's very obviously like, that's speaking about truth and faith and things like that. Like the books of Narnia and stuff, for example. It's like, we know the parallels. That's very obvious.
Yeah.
But there's songs that are far more contemporary, which is like very obviously singing about Jesus or something else. That's like, clearly it's a Christian song, or intended for Christians, I suppose. Yeah.
Do you think there's a bit of that with Ezra and Nehemiah that's coming up, in the sense of it's a biblical theme, and it is about, I guess, rebuilding, which is kind of a spiritual theme, right? Like rebuilding your... Yeah.
This is like a passion project for us, because we do games about Vikings and fighting and stuff, which isn't very Christian. So it's fun to finally do a game that like has a very direct biblical kind of background. But we were very intentional about making it not a religious game. It's a historical game, heavily inspired by the scripture, of course. But we wanted to make sure it didn't isolate people or cut people out saying, they don't want that game because it's a Bible game or a Christian game or a Jewish game. So we've tested it a lot and given it to people who aren't of any faith, and they've enjoyed it because it's a solid game and it's an interesting theme, regardless of your beliefs. So, but I couldn't shy away. The introduction to the game is like paraphrase from scripture. So, like we're not hiding it. We're also not throwing it in people's faces as well. Yeah.
Did you decide to make a Bible themed game first, and then kind of find a story of books in the Bible that you thought would fit that well, or was Ezra and Nehemiah first, and you just thought, we got to make a game about Ezra and Nehemiah?
Well, it's in our Ancient Anthology line, so we've done 3 games in that line already, which is set in the Scythians, the sort of the late Romans, almost English, and the Chinese. So we were looking for new civilizations to kind of build games around, and about 10 plus years ago I had been working on a game called Nehemiah, because I want to do a game in that theme, it's hard to find good biblical stories that aren't about human failure, because most of them are. It's about us struggling and God, and God
that's a good point.
Coming through.
Yeah.
So even though there is a lot of bad stuff that Ezra and Nehemiah do towards the end of the books, they make stupid decisions. There is still this like humans doing good things. They're building stuff. They're creating stuff, which is easy to gamify. It's hard to gamify like you all failed, so God will pick up the pieces for you. That's right. So it's a great game. It's a great story for a game, I guess. That's the best way to put it. Yeah.
No, I think it's really ingenious because it is biblical. It is a clear Euro game because you're building something.
Yeah.
And it's a story of a people that are trying to rebuild. But you could also take it as a message of rebuilding your soul, rebuilding yourself, rebuilding your beliefs. So it really translates in all sorts of avenues. So yeah, I think it's great.
I love that insight about there aren't a lot of stories in the Bible about like because you're right. I mean, games. We've talked about this in other episodes. Games, very often are kind of like these adventures and like agency, right? Like trying to kind of explore kind of your ability to do this or try this new ability or whatever. And you're right. You can't really build a game around. I'm powerless and vulnerable. That's a great point, which a lot of biblical stories are about, kind of the powerlessness and the vulnerability of the characters in the story.
There's always heroes that pop up, like you got the Joshua stories and Moses and stuff. You could do games around that, but there's so much reason why, like there's so much failure in those stories still. But you can highlight, I guess, the good parts. But that's I guess for me, that's kind of like taking away the actual meaning of the story. That's not what the Bible's about. Like the overall story of the Bible is not about human endeavor and achievement. So it's kind of hard to gamify a lot.
You could do a game about Peter where you're, Jesus' right-hand man, and then you betray him, and then you're kind of the hero for the book of Acts till Paul shows up, and then you disappear. Very unsatisfying game. Anyway, wow, very interesting. What's your interest in metal? Besides maybe being born in the late 20th or I guess your late 20th century ish.
In metal music.
Yeah, metal music.
Yeah. I think I was probably maybe 14, 15 when a friend of mine, who's probably like 10 years older than me, gave me a bunch of tapes, like cassette tapes with old music on them. Living Sacrifice, Strong Arm, Zayo, old school hardcore bands. And that's when I kind of fell in love with that stuff. I was also getting into a lot of punk bands like MXPX, Slick Shoes back then. So I've always, like, ever since that age, leant towards that more alternative punk, hardcore, metal kind of scene. I think I still like it today. I think because of its honesty. I often bounce off pop music because it's very like happy chappy and like it's a bit fake. Not to say there aren't some good pop songs, but for me, I like the grit. I like the reality of like life's tough, but there's hope. That kind of feeling. So I don't know. I mean, I love just the sound of it too, the aggression and the energy that kind of music has. But lyrically, it's like there's a slight darkness, but with the hope attached, which is in my eyes like a lot of what life is. There's a lot of misery and a lot of hurt, but there's also this hope and this future ahead of us. So yeah.
Wow. Do you listen to that when you're working on games?
Yeah, I mean, I have music on most of the time.
And it tends to be metal.
I actually go back to one of the oldest Zayo albums when I'm writing rule books because it's just like screaming, so I just can zone out. And it's like it's that nostalgic, like I know the songs so well I don't have to think about them. So I can just write rule books while I'm listening to
Right. So the lyrics don't make their way into the rule books. They just you can filter.
Yeah, I guess I'm not trying to figure them out because I know what they are and they just kind of fly over.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas I'm listening to like more modern stuff that I'm into right now, I'm probably trying to listen to it more and focus on it because I'm enjoying the new kind of sounds.
Yeah. I can see that.
Wow. What's your favorite type of music, Daniel? Genre?
Oh my goodness, my favorite type of music genre. Oh, there's so much that I like.
I do enjoy a bit of metal myself.
You do? Yeah. Really? I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
That's cool. Any
It's
particular
something about the 80s, I guess.
favorite bands?
I don't
Well,
know.
when you came to visit us, you out in Missouri, you introduced us to Greta Van Fleet, which is a little metal.
They are fine.
A little bit, maybe.
Yeah,
and
kind
we've
of
enjoyed them
glamour
since.
rock
At least
or something, but
more
yeah.
glam rock. Yeah.
Have you heard them, Shem?
No, I haven't. But
Great
it's
Van
more
Fleet.
is it more the hair metal kind of like?
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
Led
yeah.
Zeppelin-y,
Yep.
but it's
Yep.
the guy has amazing multi-octave singing, and
Nice.
it has real Led Zeppelin feel.
To answer your question, Kevin, right now, I think I'm kind of going through like a soul funk phase. I listened over the last half year or so. I'm kind of digging back and kind of discovering music from the 60s and 70s, kind of in that funk era that I'm enjoying. So there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a good beat to that.
Yeah.
Nice. Shem, one of the things you discussed very poignantly in your sermon testimonial is about the loss of your father, and you say some profound things about how religion helped you come to grips with that loss, if that's fair. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Would you change any of that, or add to that, or how does that work today, or would you summarize it, or?
Yeah, so I mean, for those who haven't seen it, my dad died when I was 13, almost 14, drowned during my cousin's 21st birthday party, kayaking down a river. So it was a massive shock. I grew up in a very typical Christian family, I think. Great parents, good school, good friends, no real drama in our family. So it was this massive shock of whoa, life can change suddenly. And this sort of pre-teen, early teen boy. My brother was 2 years older than me at the time. He still was, I guess. That's how life works. But no, it was big shock. But I think because of my foundations as a kid growing up, even within the first few days of that happening, I had this this kind of weird peace about it of I feel like God saying I'll be your father, I'll protect you, I'll look after you, I'll provide for you. And that's just carried with me my whole life. So there's been moments throughout my life where I've gone is that true? Do you really mean that? And then he's just proven himself to me time and time again. So I just cannot deny that he has, and he's been faithful the whole time. So yeah, that's how it's been for me.
And how do you think about that today, from day to day? How does that influence today as you still miss the presence of your father?
Yeah, for sure. It's
your earthly father, that is.
Yeah. It's hard to know because it's you have spent how many years now? 28 years, 27 years, something like that. So you kind of learn to live life as it is, and you can't imagine what it would have been like having a dad as a teenager or as a 20-year-old or whatever. So that is what life becomes. Anyone who's gone through loss would understand that, I guess, is you can't imagine the other side of that. But I think one of the biggest impacts that's had on me, I've seen God provide as a father throughout my life, is that with anything financial, especially for our family, I have much more of a kind of easygoing kind of attitude to life. Doesn't matter what's going to happen, he'll provide. My business could go under, that'd be fine. Life will go on and he'll provide. So it gives a certain level of grace and I guess ease. It takes away the stress of worrying and striving and trying to make something for myself, because I know that it's ultimately not up to me how my life plays out. We make decisions, of course, and we have to have the consequences of those. But as far as will I be able to feed my family this week? That's ultimately God will provide regardless. So that's my attitude, and it's something I can't deny now. I guess I've seen too much. I've seen too much of his provision, so it makes my business a lot easier for me to run, because I'm not worried about it in that sense. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you spoke a little bit about this in your sermon, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how that sense of God providing factored in or not into your decision to become a board game designer full time. I think you spoke about it was kind of a leap of faith sort of moment. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it totally was. So I went to Essen. The thing was, the first time I went, I saw all these, like my German partners, my French partners, basically making my games in their languages, and they're doing it full time. And I was just one guy at the time thinking, like, why can't I do this full time? Like, surely I could just do this full time if they're doing it full time. So I went back. That was around October. I think it was December. I told my boss, like, I'm quitting. End of January, I'm gone. I'm going full time with board games. But I had that kind of feeling of like, I've got to do it. If I don't do it, then do I really have faith? That kind of feeling of like, I've got to, put my money where my mouth is, kind of thing. And it was the perfect timing. Everything played out so well. But yeah, there definitely was a step of faith. I think at that point we may have had just one kid, maybe two, very young though. So there was a lot of risk in that kind of thing. But in the back of my head, I thought, well, if it all fails, I'll just go back to Macdonald's and I'll start flipping burgers. I knew that whatever happened, there'd be something else to fall back to, I guess. But it was worth risking my current job to see, like, let's see if this plays out. And yeah, it definitely was like that step of faith kind of moment for sure.
I love talking with people about those moments that they come into in life where they feel like they're just kind of taking this, they're stepping out in faith, or kind of taking this leap of faith. And because it can be a really scary time, uncertain time. And, I think a theme I often hear from folks, and I know I've kind of experienced in my own life too, is, you get to this point and you think, well, is this really where God is leading me? Or is this just the pizza I ate last night, just kind of like, just doing weird things in my brain, and and is that, and if it is the pizza I ate last night, is it worth risking all of this? And I don't know. And I don't know if you had any kind of wrestlings like that, and if so, how did you find a way to navigate through it? And how would you, or people who maybe find themselves wrestling with that today, what advice would you give on kind of navigating through those sort of feelings? Is God really leading me to this, or am I mixing up my signals here?
Yeah, it's so hard to trust like our own feelings or even our own thoughts, I think, in life. Like, we always make stupid choices, and we're led by emotions far too much. So it's hard to know, like, is it just a phase? Am I feeling this thing because I want to feel it, or because of other circumstances? I think for that one, and for any big decision that I've had to make, I try and look back for, like, I guess, patterns or growth, or like it's like the tide kind of thing, like seeing, like, I've seen him kind of slowly sow these things or do these things, or things certain doors have opened, and you can kind of see a pattern emerging, I suppose. It's easy to look back and see it for sure, like look back 5 years ago, I can see how he's done things, but try and look back like 6 months to a year maybe. So I had seen, for example, like that our Kickstarters were slowly growing. The first Kickstarters we'd done were like getting more and more. So that's good to see. We're getting more and more fans, growing, and then I'd seen like certain opportunities open up here and there, a little bit of work with Weta Workshop here and there, and all these things that kind of were growing. I could see things working out. So the only way I think I described it, and when I spoke, was like I could kind of see his hand on it. That was kind of how I describe it. Like I could see that there was something that God was guiding me. He was sort of opening these things up. And that's why I knew, like, this is the moment to jump. Like, that's cool. That kind of thing. That's cool. So,
I like that. Yeah. Looking back on what's come before, and what has God done, and how has God provided in the past, and probably a pretty good indication of God providing in the future. And
it's hard to make a snap decision on something, like if you've got this, you've got to make this choice right now, like with no information. That's tough, and that probably takes a lot of prayer and counseling from other people and advice, but. When you've seen this sort of pattern of growth, it's like I'm pretty obvious that God's pushing me in this direction. Yeah.
I like that.
Right.
Thanks.
Sometimes the obstacle is our own fears in the end. Like the path becomes clearer. Yeah. And the company's named somehow after your father and a grandfather. Is that right? On Discord? Did I read that?
Yeah, after my dad. Yeah. So my dad's Gary Phillips. So Garphill. Yeah. And the bird from my logo is a robin, which is my mum's middle name. So I thought she's got to get some credit as well. So.
That's so nice. You've connected with your parents. Wow.
Yeah.
Very nice. And what are connections you might see within religion and games and game design? We hit some of that with Ezra and Nehemiah, but maybe in the sense of building.
Yeah, there's often not much connection really to, unless it's a direct story like Ezra and Nehemiah. There's not much like religion in mechanisms. Like mechanisms aren't inherently religious or non-religious. So I think with any kind of art form, though, for me, it's like it's an expression of worship. We are made in His image, and we are image bearers. So anything we create is reflecting His image. So ideally, I want to put out that image, not some other image. So there's choices that I might make, like certain themes I won't touch because they're not portraying a good image. And then there's other things I'd love to do, like Ezra and Nehemiah, where it's like, well, this is clearly teaching some biblical kind of stories. So. Yeah, I mean, Vikings and stuff. It's like, well, what can you do with that? they weren't Christians. They were bloody and they were brutal. So it's more about just like delivering the best possible thing, and it's providing also like a game for someone to enjoy that gives them some freedom, some joy in life beyond the theme. So it's more about the experience that it can create for people. So,
what themes would you not touch? Do you want to? I'm just curious when you said that.
Yeah, anything that's like occultish, witchcraft, that kind of stuff. Anything that, I guess, from the outside, people who have no religion or faith would think, why? What's wrong with that? It's just fun, spooky stuff. But for a Christian, you're like, I know there's some reality to those themes. So there's things I wouldn't want to touch like that. I don't mind like high fantasy. I don't mind things with like wizards and stuff, Lord of the Rings kind of stuff, because I guess in my mindset that is fantasy. But when it comes down to like more reality-based, like spiritual stuff, that's where I'm like, no, I don't want to touch that kind of stuff. Yeah, but anything gory or like overly sexual, that kind of stuff, it's just, why would I want to play around with that kind of stuff? Why would I want my kids seeing that stuff on my board game shelves? You know.
You mentioned kind of exploring themes in games, and early in the episode, you talked about I forget now. I love it, but is it called corruption and virtue in architects? That it's developed in later games as well. But I mean, I know when I play architects, that's, it's kind of almost like a little meditation piece. You know, it's like, well, ethically, what kind of person do I want to be? You know, what kind of morally, what kind of, and I don't know if that was kind of an intentional, but it's almost kind of invitational and like inviting the players to think about, like how they want to interact with the world and what kind of person they want to be in the world. And I don't know. Anyway, it kind of that's how it strikes me. But I've appreciated and found that delightful, the invitation of.
I've found some funny situations where my more like, very Christian friends will just go straight into corruption, be as evil as possible, and fight the black market all the time. And they've got these friends who are like atheists or non-believers, and they will just go very virtuous. It's like, we're just switching roles here. Is that what's going on? Is that what board games are for? Just for us to like try stuff we wouldn't try in real life? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the optimal is to veer into corruption, but not too far, and then manage to bank out of it at the right time. But it's not always easy to pull off.
Ultimately, it's a game, but it's kind of fun to like. It gets you a little bit invested in like your own, your own morality a bit. Like, oh, am I going to be that bad person? But it's for fun,
Yeah, no, I really believe in that. If I'm playing a game or like a role playing game, I definitely want to be someone very different, because that's my chance to do something
I think that's
interesting
playing, right?
that I would never do in real life.
Yeah.
It's why, as I mentioned before, that's why I like Bunny Kingdom, because I have never been a bunny overlord before. So I'm just that's good.
Right. My goodness. I've got this comment to read here, but any other thoughts from either Daniel or Shem? Where does the name Shem come from? Do you know?
It's one of Noah's sons.
Oh,
Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Yeah.
Oh, right.
It's the Hebrew word for name. So it has the same meaning as our English word for name.
Right. All right.
Do you feel like
I'm the only non-biblical person here.
Surely there's a Kevin somewhere in the Bible.
No, he was some Irish saint that lived on a pole or something.
sounds,
My parents just like the name. It has no meaning
sounds almost
to them.
biblical.
I mean, we're not Irish.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, have you seen yourself grow in faith as a result of any game, or as a result of designing a game? Have you learned kind of any religious or spiritual lessons from gaming, do you think?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's okay.
I will say though, like designing Ezra and Nehemiah, like was great because I was like way more motivated to study those books, and Haggai and Zechariah as well. So having some like deeper, or not deeper, I guess more practical reason to study those books was great. So because you want to study anyway, but having this like reason and focus for actually, like, not just for wisdom but for knowledge, to learn about this period a lot more historically and stuff. That was fun. Really good.
I wondered that about your historical games. I mean, do you just have a natural interest and lifelong learning of history already under your belt as you approach these subjects, or do you kind of have to go into a deep dive of learning about each of these subjects as you dive into a historically themed game?
Yeah, I love sci-fi and stuff as well, but I think when I come to like anything that's to do with play, like Lego or board games or anything like that, computer games, I just love the kind of sword and shield kind of stuff, because I think I understand it. I know I can pick up a sword and I can hold a shield. When I'm playing in sci-fi, I'm like, well, what's a Mega Blaster 5 million do? Like, I like watching sci-fi, but I don't like playing in that space so much. I always love playing Age of Empires in my teenage years. Still kind of do a little bit. The strategy game on computer. I still kind of getting back into Lego now. You probably can't see behind me, but there's Lego there. Always ancient kind of themes, and or even up to pirates kind of age as well. I just love that kind of medieval ancient stuff. It's just fun. I don't know why, but it clicks with me.
No, I can understand that. Yeah.
But we do a lot of research though. Yeah.
Yeah, you must, and because I'd never heard of you until I played the Legacy of You and looking that up. The Chinese.
Yeah, that one was a case of like,
that's neat.
All right, I've got this solo kind of game working. What great heroes are there out in ancient like stories? Like search for like some kind of ancient hero that hasn't been talked about much, and I think I found a few, but then found the story of You the Great and thought this is perfect. Like I could have this flood mechanism working out and all this kind of stuff. So often we'll have like some kind of mechanisms in mind and then find a theme and then twist it to work better. Other ways, like when I did Raiders of Scythia, which was obviously just a redo of Raiders of the North Sea, I was like, well, what other like highly barbaric races existed in the ancient like world? And that's when I found the Scythians, which I hadn't heard of before, but they are actually referenced by, I think by Paul. And even to say you're a Scythian was like an insult back in Greek days. So it says something about, I think the scripture is something like, along the lines of like, there's salvation for all, even for the Scythians. Like that's kind of how they're regarded. They
even for them.
I was like, well, they're kind of adjacent to Vikings. Like they're that that's how I got that
Vikings.
theme. Yeah. Otherwise,
that's
like,
cool.
yeah. Now that we've got new stories starting up, I just have a list of like different ancient civilizations that are kind of aspiring, and thought I could make a game of that in some ways. So I've got one now that I've got the name, I've got the place, but I don't have the game. But I like what that name and that world will inspire. So trying to make a game in that theme from the start. Yeah.
But I take it from what you're saying earlier, it's not always in that order, right? It's not always the order
it changes up.
Yeah, sometimes the game comes first and then yeah.
Ideally you kind of like have either some very simple mechanisms or at least like the setting, like the civilization or something. And then once you have that, you kind of find the other one quickly, and then you figure out what the story is, like who are the players, what are they doing, and from there you kind of develop both the setting and the theme and the story together and the mechanisms together. So otherwise, if you skip all that stuff and you finish the game without any kind of theme, then it's like, well, then it will feel quite pasted on, because I like the theme to inspire some of the mechanisms, like the Valkyrie and Raiders of the North Sea. Like they was like, well, they wanted to die in battle. There has to be in the game somehow. So developed a mechanism that they kind of brought that theme into the game.
And your brother is an artist, right? He does the artwork for the games.
He does
so
all
both
the
of you
ancient
are
games.
Creatives, in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, when we grew up trying to make our own comic books and superheroes and stuff, even from we were like 5 years old, just used to make our own characters and all sorts. And we had the modeling clay do kit. I don't know if you have do kit, but it's like a modeling clay. You can make stuff and then bake it in the oven, make your own little action figures and stuff. We used to do that kind of thing. I can't draw to save my life, but I would often draw my superheroes and then my brother would redraw them for me. Because he actually had drawing skills when we were kids,
Nice.
which I never have. So, yeah, we've done like t-shirts before, like our own brands for t-shirts. Always wanted to make stuff together. So it's a great way to do it
really
finally.
Very creative family. You've got music, you've got art, you've got game
Well, yeah, my
design.
mum's an amazing artist. Yep, she does all sorts of like pretty much any medium. She does pottery and fine art, all sorts.
Oh, wow.
And a dressmaker as well. My wife's a dressmaker. Yeah, so we're a very, very creative family. But
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Would you ever do like an Ameritrash dudes on a map type game, or it's just not your interest?
maybe.
Maybe.
I used to stay way away from them until we did Chaos Order. So we published Chaos Order last year, I think it was a year before, which is designed by Sam Macdonald and Zachary Smith. So it's a very heavy, quite asymmetric area control game. Very fighty. And I played it the first time in prototype form and thought, this is cool. I can see why it's appealing, but it's not my thing. And then slowly, as I played the game more, and as I had to write the rule book, I understood the game a lot more and actually got really into it. Now I really enjoy it. So
It's a great game.
yeah.
I've played it a lot.
Yep.
Still terrible at it, but it sort of seems like kind of a hybrid game.
It is,
it's
yeah.
more of a Euro, but it does have a dudes on the map battle aspect.
Yeah.
And a bit of a nail biter too. Like it's come down to one roll of the dice, which Daniel and I discuss. I think is a lot of fun in a game at times.
Oh, yeah. It's that moment, that memory that you're,
Yeah, you
the next 5
remember
years.
it, and
That's right.
and it's luck, so it's not personal. It's like, well,
Yeah.
You just rolled better than I did, so well done.
Yeah, I think I lean away from games where, like, on a dice roll, you obliterated my entire army. Like, those kind of games bug me, like Kemet and stuff. But when it's just like, oh, I lost maybe one troop and I had to go back to base, but I can come back next round. That stuff I don't mind so much. But when it's just like you get completely wiped off, all of your work that round is just gone. That's when, like, I get salty a little bit. But
yeah.
I actually did a video on it for Chaos Order. It was titled "Will a Eurogamer Enjoy Chaos Order?" And I kind of go into like why I ended up liking it in the end. A lot of it was my own. Like, I realized I was way too salty and way too like invested in the game. I needed to relax and just like go, you know what, it's a game. Because Eurogamers can be very competitive, but you don't realize it because it's all friendly environment. But as soon as those players get on an area control game, they get very angry and very like I must win. So
Right.
a lot of it was like soul searching to see like why do I get so angry when I play these games? So yeah.
Yeah, and it's partly the role of luck, I guess.
Yeah, and I
Messes
think
with
and also just being outsmarted by the players, In an engine building game like a Euro game, I can lose the game but still see all the stuff I achieved and go, I did it right. I did this thing and this thing, and you kind of see what you built. In a more Ameritrash combat game, like you either win or you lose, and when you lose, you can see all the defeat in front of you and how poorly you played. And it's usually because the other players outsmarted you. They were better. Maybe there was some luck in there as well. But a lot of those games, it's more about like moving into that perfect position and then like betting your odds and that kind of stuff. And I'm just not that good at that kind of game. So, so when I lose, I'm like, it's clearly that I was the worst player. Yeah.
Daniel, have you tried Wayfarers yet?
I haven't. I really want to. I'm sorry. It's a
I
point of
think it's
shame.
my favorite of Shem's designs.
I've
if
heard
I may
such
be
good
so
things
bold.
about it.
But what I like is, as Shem said, you come away, you feel smart even when you lost, just because you can see what you did. Like it has a real, it's just something really magical about it. And I just like the going around the board sense of, it's the one and it's a great solo game too. So
It's a hard
try
game
it.
to learn and a hard game to teach. I found that out. I had to teach it 3 times back to back at a convention, and I was like, I don't like teaching this game. Whereas I taught scholars like about 15 times at Essen and really enjoyed it. So yeah,
I'm looking forward to
Wayfarers
that.
is a big upfront teach, but once you get into it, it's quite simple. Yeah. So
Yeah, I tried to
that first
teach
hurdle.
Jenny, my wife Jenny, Wayfarers, and she just looked at me like, "You've got to be kidding."
Yeah, that's the hard one.
It was just not her type. She'll play some games, but that was, as you said, it's very upfront, and yeah, it was too much. I think I have to
Once
pick the
you've
right
yeah,
time. Yeah,
once you've got it,
Kevin,
it's
that
as simple as architects. Like it's that easy. Just very
yeah,
simple turns.
yeah, yeah.
I
Especially
can
because you're
imagine.
matching the little symbols. So
Yeah.
once you realize the matching aspect,
Next time we get together, Kevin, bring Wayfarers. We gotta.
I can. If I leave
I would-
now, I'll be there in 20 hours.
I will look forward to it. I'll look forward to it.
Yes. Yeah, I did a big drive across America trip, Shem.
Oh wow.
So to visit Daniel in an electric vehicle. So half the time was trying to find a charger, but it was still fun.
Nice.
So as we're recording it right now, Kevin, I'm 1 hour behind Kevin, and you're like, are you 14, 15 hours ahead, Shem?
Yeah, it's almost 1 p.m. on Tuesday.
Wow.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Tuesday. Wow.
The world is so weird.
I gotta say, I know this is like totally geeky, but like I love doing this. Also, I mean, for one thing, we're going to talk with you, which is amazing. But also, it kind of like low key feels like time travel, right? Like we're like talking to the future, and I guess you're talking to the past. But it's anyway, it's kind of cool. All right,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
done
crazy.
with my Doctor Who moment.
Right. All right, here's a lovely comment from one of our listeners online. I'll read to you from @JohnGlenn. This is through our little Discord channel page server thing. So John writes, "I'm so thrilled to hear you'll be speaking with Shem Phillips. I played Legacy of You over the summer during a very difficult time for me. My sister just passed away in the spring after a long and agonizing struggle with cancer. There wasn't enough time to properly say goodbye, as anyone who has been through such an ordeal can testify. It was and is very painful. Shem's game gave me the mental guardrails I needed at that time to help me navigate those long days. In Legacy of You, the floodwaters coming in from one side and the barbarians attacking from the other so aptly portrayed my personal struggle, the overwhelming void of her absence against the many lingering regrets." John's a fantastic writer, by the way, obviously. I do not know this person, but he writes, "Little by little, one campaign after another, winning some, losing others, I began to feel my own floodwaters subsiding and my own barbarians retreating, enough to at least gain some balance once again. Words alone cannot express my gratitude, but please tell Shem how grateful I am for all his hard work on Legacy of You, arguably one of the best solo game experiences of all time, regardless of platform. The game's mechanics and resources are so wonderful, tight, and the decisions so well tuned to the theme. I can only say bravo and, of course, encore. One day, God willing, I will see my sister again, and she will tell me that, in fact, Legacy of You wasn't a solo game because I wasn't playing alone." That's really lovely.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And humbling as well.
Good. Wow.
Thanks for sharing that. It's incredible.
Yeah. I'll send that to you in a printed form too.
I mean, those kind of stories. I've heard a few of those, not too many, but of people like playing in hospital beds and things where they're suffering with something, and it's kind of makes it very real. We do this stuff for fun, and it's all enjoyable, and generally very happy, chappy, and then like when someone's like, "This game helped me through this very difficult time," that's like, wow, that makes it worthwhile for sure. Like knowing that some cardboard and some wood and some rules can give someone joy at like a real horrible time. So yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and you made this thing, I guess, 2 years ago. And as it filters out into the real world, it has all these impacts that you can't foresee.
Yeah, I think like going back to what you asked at the very start about like how do you kind of, I guess, bring faith into board game design, or is there any kind of relationship between faith and design? I guess this is the part of it that is kind of like where I feel it is that it's my hope, I guess, that at least God will be working through me, through my creativity, even though it's not a Christian theme or anything. Hopefully that God's using my gift to then minister to someone else through that cardboard, through that wood and those rules, which, yeah, that's amazing. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Shem, people can find you on YouTube and on the Discord server for Garphill Games. Any
Yep.
other connections you want to mention?
I think if you go to garphill.com, you'll find links to all that kind of stuff quite easily. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Very good. Daniel, any last thoughts?
No, just to say again, thank you, Shem. We're so grateful for your taking time to join us, and thank you for the ways that your heart for good games and your heart for God come together in some pretty wonderful ways. And I couldn't think of a better way to close the episode than with that kind of testimony that John Glenn shared. So, thank you. We really appreciate your joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Shem. We will see our listeners in 2 weeks. See you then.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.